We are gonna make the ultimate protein bar, the ultimate shelf-stable protein bar, and it has as little as 3 ingredients.
What's up, family? I'm Rachel.
And I'm Joe.
And we are Two Crazy Ketos.
And if you're new to our channel, welcome. Here on Two Crazy Ketos, we do different things like recipe videos and we do product reviews. We talk about various keto topics, and every Monday we go live on Keto Beyond the Couch because life exists beyond the couch.
You can find us in different social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and X.
And we have a website, which is twocrazyketos.com, and that's where you're gonna find all of our different recipes. Now we do upload at least 5 new videos every single week, so make sure you subscribe to our channel.
And don't forget to hit the little bell icon, and that way every single time we're back in the kitchen, Joe, you'll be alerted to it.
We're super excited for today's video,
yes.
And this has been something that I have been saying I was gonna do for a long time. I made this years ago and never really did anything with it because it was really just a way of preserving things, but recently, we've really gotten into consuming this food product. Not only that, our grandbaby has begun consuming this.
Yes, so when it comes to your motivation to get things done, a grandbaby is the perfect motivation for getting things done.
So what are we making? We are gonna make the ultimate protein bar, the ultimate shelf-stable protein bar, and it has as little as 3 ingredients.
And this isn't something that's new to the planet.
No.
Like this is
it's ancient.
It is an ancient thing. So we're about what, like 2,000-3,000 years late to the party on this, but it's definitely something that's been utilized for centuries.
Here's the thing. We love the carnivore bar.
Love them.
These are really, really good.
So good.
But they are really, really expensive.
Also, our grandbaby, when we watch her, will eat them faster than we can order them.
She'll eat a couple of them a day minimum.
Yes.
We took her to Disney through Fort Wilderness and she was downing them. And we really do like them, and we still will use these because they're packaged.
Right.
And like, for example, we're going on the low carb cruise. When you go on the cruises, you can bring food with you, but you cannot bring homemade food with you.
Right.
So we could not bring homemade with us, and that's where we'll utilize something like this. So why are we saying this? Because today we're going to make pemmican.
This piece is all permeated right now with pemmican, all up in this piece.
So what is pemmican? Pemmican is a way to preserve meat, and you only need a couple of ingredients.
Love that.
Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
Okay, so the first thing you're going to need is you're gonna need some meat.
Hopefully.
And it needs to be very lean. If you have access to bison or elk,
Venison,
any kind of super lean meat, you can do this. You can also do it with beef. You want to get the leanest beef possible. So, go to your grocery store, find the super, super, super lean roast. And the good thing is those are usually really cheap. It's not like buying a ribeye. Or you can cheat like we're gonna do today, and you can use extra lean ground beef. And I'm talking about like 93% or 97% to 3% fat. If you want the leanest stuff that you can find, because the fat that is in the meat is what is going to determine the shelf life of what you're consuming. So we're gonna use ground beef because we have it, but again, if you can go to the store and buy a roast, slice it thin, you'll find out why in a minute, or you can ask your butcher, if you have a good butcher, hey, can you take this roast and grind it up? Or you can bring it home and grind it yourself. Like we have a meat grinder, grind it up. But you want the leanest thing that you can possibly find. You could even use salmon, by the way, like ultra lean salmon.
we gotta try that.
The next thing we need is some salt.
Redmond real salt.
And then the last thing you need is you need a rendered fat.
This is our favorite.
You can make it yourself. So if you're like us and you buy big briskets in the packer, you can take all that fat and render it down. Rendering it down is pretty easy. It's just time consuming and it smells, so do it outside. Basically what you're doing is you're taking something like beef suet and you're gonna melt it until you just have liquid gold. Ooh. Then you take out all of the impurities, like the piece of the meat, the gristle that doesn't melt down, and you get rid of that, and then you have pure rendered fat. So you can make your own. You can buy something like this. We'll leave a link for this down below. You can also use cleaned bacon grease. So if you have bacon grease that's clean, and you can use coconut oil, you can use like elk fat. So any kind of rendered fat. So those are the three main ingredients. From there, the sky is the limit. You can add spices, you can add garlic, you can buy the plucked seasonings, and you can also do it the way like the American Indians would do it, because this was their way of preserving meat, and that is add in some berries, so like dried berries. And we're gonna actually use freeze-dried blueberries. Now, they don't have to be freeze-dried. They just have to be dried.
But these are extra special ones because Peyton and I picked these together on a recent family outing with John Paul and Michelle. So the fact that we can make something like this that really honors my personal family history of Native American history, and then be able to make this at home and then use the fresh in-season blueberries that we picked together, that makes it special.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is we need to dry our meat. So like I said, we're gonna just use some ground beef from a cow that we purchased.
Thanks, cow.
This is very, very lean. And again, you don't have to use ground meat. You can actually just take meat and slice it super thin. The thinner you slice it, the faster it's gonna dry. You can have thicker meat, it's just gonna take a really long time to dry. So what I do is I take my ground meat, and then we just take a rolling pin and kind of roll it flat a little bit. Again, it doesn't really matter the thickness. It's just more of the thinner you can get it, the shorter time for drying, but you also need to make this so that you can actually utilize it. You are gonna need a dehydrator. You can do this in an oven. Doing it in an oven, you're going to basically follow the same rules. You're going to make it super, super thin. Then what you're gonna do is you're gonna put it onto your baking sheet, because with an oven, you're not gonna have something where the air can come through. You're gonna go at 170 degrees, and you're gonna basically go until it's dry, which is gonna be probably 6 to 8 hours.
Right.
Okay, so we've got it on here. Now what we do is just flip it over, and then you can slowly peel it off. And now we just got to do the other half. So I'll let you do this one. You can tell Rachel doesn't cook very often.
I don't, but this recipe really is so easy. Even Rachel can make it.
So you got to go in all the different directions. Try to make a circle. So go that way.
This is like cooking with a child, right, Joe?
By the way, on this, you've got a rough side and a shiny side. Put it on the shiny side. Otherwise, you have to worry about things getting into little grooves. So again, we just go like that. This is the easiest way. Put it on here. Now, if you're gonna just use sliced beef, it's kind of the same premise, except for you don't have to roll it out. So it just depends on how thin you're gonna slice your beef, you know, how easy it is to work with. You could even do this with meat thins.
Yeah, you could.
It's just that would be super expensive because the meat thins aren't cheap. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this, we're gonna put it into our dehydrator at the highest temperature, which I believe ours is like 167 degrees. And we're gonna go for 8 to 10 hours. You wanna go until it's completely dry. We're not looking for beef jerky, we're looking for dried beef, and it should be brittle and break like a potato chip. Okay, we have a batch that we've already dried. Now, one thing I did wanna mention, especially if you're doing it in the oven, you need to flip the beef halfway through, especially in the oven, because if you're doing it in an oven, you're probably doing it like on a cookie sheet, and you need to get all the
Ventilation.
fat and the moisture and everything out of there. But I even flip it in the dehydrator because especially when you have something like this ground beef, if there's a little bit of fat, it may pull up on the top. So what I'll do is halfway through, I will flip it over so that whatever fat there is kind of drips down into the bottom. But then what I'll do is, especially with ground beef, I'll take a little paper towel and I'll just kind of pat it a little bit. But that's pretty much it. So we have our ground beef here. We're not ready yet though. There is a very important step that you cannot miss here. And that is you need to know how much this weighs.
Ooh, okay.
The starting weight doesn't matter, but the dried weight does. You're generally going to lose about 75% of weight.
Well, and that's important to remember because we think about like, why is beef jerky, why is the carnivore bar at the price point that it is? It's expensive and it takes a lot of beef to make a little bit of carnivore bars.
Right. So we had a pound here, so you can see how this is how it needs to be. It needs to be really dry. By the way, you could also start with beef jerky. If you have like a really clean beef jerky, you're just gonna need to stick it into your dehydrator to dry it more than beef jerky. Okay, so we're gonna take our scale. We're going to zero it out. And now we're gonna weigh this. So again, we started with a pound of ground beef, and now we have 164 grams. So if you're wondering how much in pounds that is, it's 5.8 ounces. So a pound is 16 ounces. You ended up with less than 6 ounces. So you lost 10 ounces.
Yeah, so you start with a lot and it shrinks down.
So we have 165 grams. The reason you need to know this is because now you're gonna need to get your beef suet, or your fat rather, your rendered fat, and you're going to start with this amount. So you may not use that much, but that's the most you're gonna use. So what we're gonna do is you're going to get your beef fat and you're going to melt it, and you wanna get 165 grams if you're only making it with beef. However, if you're adding something else in, like we're gonna add in some dried blueberries, you need to incorporate that weight as well. So I have 28 grams of blueberries here, which is 1 ounce. So with our blueberries, we have 195 grams.
Maybe 194.
Maybe. Now again, you can do this with dried strawberries, dried raspberries. You can even use dried cherries. The key is they have to be dried. So you can't take raisins.
No.
Okay, you could take your raisins and you're gonna throw those in your dehydrator and just keep drying them. They need to be dried. The drier they are, the longer the shelf life. How long is the shelf life? 10 to 20 years.
Wow.
Okay, so now what we're gonna do,
They're not gonna last that long in your kitchen though, because they're delicious.
we're going to take a food processor. You can use a grinder, but the key here is it needs to become a powder.
Right.
So what we're gonna do is put this into our food processor and we're gonna let it go.
Okay, what about salt?
What was that?
What about the salt?
So once we have it ground, which we've been going for about a minute, it looks like it's probably good. I'll go ahead and check it. Yeah, see how it's like a nice powder in there? We can add salt. Salt is subjective. I like it salty. I think salt brings out the flavor. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with a measurement, and I'm gonna go about 1 to 2 teaspoons.
Teaspoons?
Teaspoons. Okay.
That was big.
So that was closer to a tablespoon, probably a little bit less, but I'm pretty good at this.
All right.
Okay.
I believe you.
We'll give it another mix. We have our fat melting right now. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start mixing it up. The fat is done. What are you doing?
Well, there was some leftover tallow, so I'm just kind of greasing up.
Okay, so we're gonna take our mixture here. This step you could do in the food processor, but I find it makes it messy.
Right.
So, I just choose to put it into a bowl because I feel like it is easier to clean fat out of this than it is to clean fat out of this.
And I appreciate that.
The other thing is is you want to be able to pour it. And so it's much easier to just, pour it out of this. You can put it into any kind of a bowl or anything like that. At this point, you can check and see whether or not it's got enough salt. Because this is just cooked beef. That's all it is.
That's got a nice salt content.
It's good?
That's good.
Okay, now here's the thing. Sometimes people use honey, but if you don't want honey, but you want it a little sweet, you could put a few drops of liquid stevia in there, or liquid sucralose. You could put some allulose in there. Just know that now it's no longer really like carnivore, or, if you add berries, it's not carnivore either, but you know where we're going with that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our melted beef fat and we're gonna add most of it in, but not all of it, because what you wanna do is you want to mix this until it becomes like a ball, like kind of clumpy.
Balls.
But you also don't want like pools of fat in there. So you see how like it's mixing really, really well? We don't want to get like big gobs of fat. It's not that the gobs of fat are going to hurt it. It's just that when it settles, you're going to have that like layer of fat on top. In fact, let me show you what I'm talking about. So here's the top. Like what sits in our tray, and see that little bit of fat on there. Some people may not like that.
Is more fat better? Do I need to use all the fat so it's equal
You don't have
portions?
to use it all. You just want to make sure that basically everything is covered in fat.
Okay.
So rendered fat, beef tallow, is shelf stable. You can leave it on your counter. And so when you do it like this, you're basically preserving all of the meat so that nothing goes bad. Now what you're going to do, we're going to put it into trays. You could also just pour it into like a baking dish and score it once it's dry, but I find it's easier to just do this. If you do it right, you'll end up with 8 bars. Now, one thing that you do want to try to do as you're doing this is stir it every once in a while so that your last one doesn't have like a gob of fat. And that looks pretty good. Guess what? You've got pemmican.
You're done.
You're done. There's no more cooking or anything like that. What we're going to do is we're going to take this and then we're going to put it into the refrigerator, and you're going to let it like basically harden. And then once it's hardened, put it into whatever kind of storage container you want. So we're going to go ahead and let these solidify, and we'll come back in a little while. Okay, so it's been about an hour, hour and a half, and our pemmican bars are now done.
Looking good.
All we got to do is pop them out. Let's make this pretty.
Did you just say, let's make this pretty? Let's make this tasty.
Ready?
Yeah.
Dink.
Mmm.
Oh, it's perfect.
So good. Mmm. The blueberries add
a hint.
Just a hint, a nice back note, but really you're tasting delicious beef. I like the mouthfeel. It definitely is different, right? It's not just crunchy and it's not just soft. So it does have a distinct mouthfeel to it. I probably would dial back the salt just a little bit from this batch, but I like it nice and salty.
Yeah, these are really good. And again, like you can add a little bit of sweetener if you want to have some sweetness. I mean, it's not the idea behind it.
No.
But you can put any kind of spices, anything that you want to put in there. Just make sure that you're getting rid of any moisture, and that, when you use it, when you make it, you are using a really good, clean, rendered fat, because these are now shelf stable.
Now, we do keep ours, at least I do, in the refrigerator. Even the carnivore bar. I just like them nice and cold.
Right.
I just pack them right into a lunchbox and then off to a picnic we go. But you can leave them, out.
So the idea behind this is now you can take this wherever you want to go. If you take it out of the refrigerator, if you're storing in the refrigerator, you can keep it out of the refrigerator for a week, 2 weeks. If you vacuum seal them, obviously it will last even longer.
Right.
It really comes down to, did you get all the moisture out, and did you use a good quality fat? Now, if you're curious about the nutrition, I remember exactly, I'll put it here on the screen, but each one of these bars, when you took this recipe that I did and added the blueberries and divided it into 8 servings, they come out to be roughly like 272 calories. It's like 12 grams of fat, like 12 grams of protein, 22 grams of fat. And because we added blueberries to it, it comes out to be 3 carbs for each one.
Total.
But if you don't add any blueberries, it's 0 carbs.
Hello.
So it just depends on what you're going to add. You could add more berries, you could add less berries. Again, you just need to make sure that they are dry. But that is how you make your own pemmican. And again, we cheated a little bit using ground beef. But
no
it's
regrets.
Whatever you want to use, just make sure you dry the beef really well. Now, if you like seeing videos like this, take a look at some of the videos. We have linked right over here. Also, make sure you take a look at the most recent videos I'm gonna put right over there.
But whether you head this way or you head this way, don't forget to head this way. Subscribe to our channel and click the little bell icon, and that way every single time we're cooking up something delicious, you'll be alerted to it.
Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.